Hello and welcome back to another episode of STL Real Estate Roundtable Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Barr, CEO and team leader of Keller Williams Realty Chesterfield. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Tom Basler.
How you doing?
Tom, thank you so much for being a part of this today.
Yeah, our pleasure.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in. Talk to me about what got you started in a career in real estate.
Well, it's kind of interesting, as I think most agents are. None of us like set that goal to be a realtor. And out of college, I was an electrical engineer. That's my trade.
Where'd you go to school?
DeVry University out in Kansas City.
Okay.
Is a technical school at the time. It's grown much larger, but they had an electrical degree program. And so I got out of there and was at McDonnell Douglas, which is now Boeing. So I was there for 6.5 years and loved my job. Did flight simulation, so it was kind of a fun job, but I hated the environment I had to work in. Mm-hmm. It was corporate America. 4 of those 6.5 years I were there were a lot of layoffs, and you just never knew if you were the next number. And
always feeling like you're on the hot seat a little bit.
So I began to do field service work. I'd go out to the customer site. I was doing international travel. I was single. It was kind of a good gig, right?
Yeah.
And I spent 3 months over in Helsinki, Finland, working on a project. I came back, went into my shop on a Thursday. The manager laid 10 guys off in our department, which at that time was no big deal. And then at 4 o'clock, they came in and laid him off after they let him do that all day, knowing what they were going to do to him. And I went, if that's corporate America, I'm checking out. And I had gotten my real estate license at night in the spring of 93. So that dates me. I've been at this.
I was going to say, you didn't have to give the year.
31 years I've been doing this.
That's awesome.
But spring of 93, they offered a voluntary layoff. And they were just trying to stagger the workforce. I was single. So I took a voluntary layoff for 3 months. I kept my benefits out there, and they were just, I'd saved the guy's job below me who had just had a baby, because I was in the union, so it was all just a number. And at the end of 90, I got my license, went into an office every day and did phone duty as much as I could, did open houses as much as I could for agents. And after 90 days, they called me back, and I'm like, I'll turn my badge in. I quit. So I quit and dove into real estate.
So no, burn the ships mentality.
Burn the ship, baby.
Burn the ship.
I was not going back.
That's awesome. So flight simulations, was that kind of like playing a video game?
It was a huge video game.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. My dad was a mechanic in the Air Force, and it was the best job ever.
The only thing, because my job was, I did the hardware side that developed the scenes. So our division developed the scenes that the pilots see.
That they practice on.
I spent 8 hours in a black room. All 4 of my walls were flat black because I was just looking at scenes all day and developing scenes. So
wow.
So it was a little bit weird there, but most people have a nice office with a window, and I stared at 4 flat black walls for 8 hours.
That's fun. That's fun. Cool. So you get your real estate license, you're going all in. Kind of what happens next?
I dove all in. I joined back then Gundaker my first year in the business, was Rookie of the Year in the office. And then, after about a year of that, I explored another brokerage, and, I went to RE/MAX for 19 years. I seems like a lot more entrepreneurial type brokerage, and I spent 19 years there, and then moved over to KW.
Gotcha. And you're partnered up with Dawn now. Yeah. So how did that come about?
Well,
because you've mentioned to me before, you couldn't be more different, right?
Yeah.
Right. Very different.
Yeah. So there's a lot there with the partnership, right?
Yeah.
So, Chesterfield office had opened up, and, Dawn was a investor there, and TL at the time, your role. So she was obviously calling on agents, and we had always had a working relationship. I know there was more than one kitchen table that we both were at, to compete for the listing. And but we had always been in the same general area. and knew of each other. And then, she started calling on me and saying, how's it going, all that. And so long story short, I came over to Keller Williams, and I had a small team at Remax at the time. My buyer's agent didn't come along, and so I wanted to rebuild a team there. And, Dawn helped me sort of, have some candidates for a buyer's agent and all that. And then at the time we were both running. I was running marathons, half marathons. Dawn was doing half marathons, and we started training together. And when you got 10 miles to run in an hour and a half or so, you just kind of have a lot to talk about.
Talk a lot about business.
Yeah. She had her team. She was TL, which is really 2 full-time jobs, and would express her challenges. I would express mine, and then I always say I remember exactly the spot on the trail the day I said, what would it ever look like if we joined forces, And we kind of bantered that around for a while. And if anyone knows Dawn, she doesn't do that for very long.
No.
There was one day in the office, we crossed paths in the hallway, and she's like, get in there. We went into a conference room, and she's like, we're either going to figure this out or we're going to quit talking about it. Mm-hmm. And I wish to this day I had that plain sheet of paper where we drew out a little org chart and all of that. We went to Coach at the time, Mark King, was still in our market center running that. So went to him, and then I think 4 or 5 other mentors, telling them what we were up to, and they're like, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. Putting 2 mega agents together usually doesn't work well, which actually kind of threw gas on the fire for Dawn and I.
We're wired out.
Yeah. So we did, and she had more of the infrastructure in place, and she's like, just have your team start showing up to our team meetings and all that. And we said, okay, we're going to give it 100 days to see how this sort of blends together. And we got to about day 60 something and went, we're going to do this. So that was 9 years ago was our anniversary in October. We just celebrated 9 years together in partnership.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations. And you're still talking to each other.
We still talk to each
other. How about that? That's great.
Yeah.
So, now, did you grow up in St. Louis?
I grew up in a little town south of here, St. Genevieve.
Okay, St. Genevieve.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Farm town, 4,000 people.
Yeah.
And not much going on there when you get outside of high school. And, you work at the lime plant or you're a farmer, and I was neither of that. So, So
very similar hometowns then. We had drive your tractor to school day. We had very similar. 4,000 people.
Yeah.
Like 12 churches, 1 stoplight, and
my dad was he was sheriff there for 24 years. And I didn't know what I was going to do growing up, but I knew what I was not going to do, and it was that. So
my mom's high school English teacher, and I had her 2 classes a day my junior year, and I was like, get me out of junior year. She's going to watch this episode too. She's like one of the 4 viewers. Sorry, Mom. But okay, cool. So, you and Dawn have, built this awesome business. What are some challenges that, because everybody loves hearing this successes, but I think what the viewers, really crave is like, okay, what are Tom and Dawn struggling with? Like, what are they working through to make their business more efficient and better moving forward? So
great question. So, we tripled our business in the first 2 years we were together, and which creates its own things, right? We woke up one day and went, okay, neither of us are operations people. So here we are, we've grown the business, and what do we do with it now, right? So it began, finding a director of operations and that whole process, and how do you train them when that's not really what you're good at,
Yeah.
So we went through a lot of learning curves there, a lot of coaching, along the ways, and then, it just evolved from there.
Mm-hmm. Talk about the importance of coaching, because I think there's a lot of agents that they're selling a lot of real estate, they're wheeling and dealing, running and gunning, but they don't take time to develop themselves, and then suddenly they look up and they find themselves just in over their head, and they don't know what to do next. So talk about kind of the role that coaching's played on personally and professionally.
Coming to Keller Williams is when the light bulb went off that this is a business, and we need to treat what we do as a business versus just searching the next transaction. And I think I use the term now realtoring. I tell our team members, don't get into the mode of just realtoring.
Mm-hmm.
Truly treat this as a business and not a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge learning curve of what that's all about. And then, once Dawn and I got together, grew the business, now all of a sudden it's like, hey, we got to look at a P&L, so we do P&Ls every Friday and getting into that. But as far as coaching, I think it's valuable. You look at any sports figure, mainly the ones that are at the top of their game, the Tiger Woods, the LeBron James, all of them, they have multiple coaches, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we? It's a business, and, it's just good getting a totally different perspective, an unbiased opinion because you get locked into what you know, right? Mm-hmm. And it's real easy to just try to do more of that. And oftentimes it's not do more, it's do it differently and think differently. And coaches allow you to, a good coach will force you to think differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, you transition from being a mega agent and now running a team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, talk to me about that, because there's probably a lot of agents watching, listening, that they have buyer's agents, they have admin that they're not taking full advantage of. Like, how do you lead people well and, get them to where they want to be faster?
That's the next evolution of my career, is going from doing the work to become a leader. And leadership is hard.
Amen, brother.
Yeah. But I've spent probably my last, really since Dawn and I formed our partnership, is when I really dove into how do I lead, how do I lead others? And that's a never-ending journey.
You can't lead others well unless you're leading yourself well.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have to be developing. You have to be...
Yeah. I've always had a coach, and really for the first time last year, I stepped outside of the real estate space for a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been great as well.
Yeah.
So, I've always been coached. I've been a coach. I do the coaching for our team right now, our production agents, but I stepped out of the real estate space just to hear something different, and got into a program now where it's just entrepreneurs of all different industries.
That's really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Because, you just get stuck in your own little bubble.
Sure.
You're hearing the same things.
Yeah, you begin to hear the same things, and it's like, just do more. And it's like, no, I don't think that's the answer.
Yeah. So, very passionate about fitness.
Yeah.
Health.
Yes.
Wellness, different things like that. So, Ironman, how many times have you completed that?
2 now.
2, right? Just finished your second one. So, talk about the role of kind of, healthy living, working out, fitness, and kind of what that's taught you, or how that's translated to your growth in the real estate space.
Obviously, if you don't feel good, it's hard to be productive, right? It's hard to show up at the office, especially when you're leading others, if you're not feeling well. So I've always been into fitness in some form or another. Raced motorcycles back in my high school days, and then beat my body up doing that, and went, okay, I need to do something different. Got into running, kind of got bored with just marathons, got into triathlons. And I've completed 2 full Ironmans now. And
what a beast.
I tell you, there is so much parallel to endurance training that goes to real estate, and mainly it's learning delayed gratification, right?
Yeah.
When I'd been a runner, and I'm like, well, I'm halfway fit. Well, the first time I jumped in a pool, I was like, oh my God. And taking on a full Ironman, I'm like, okay, I know it. So I hired a coach.
Right.
Hired a coach, and she set up a program for me. And, the first time I got in the pool, I swam down and back, which was 50 meters, and I was dead. I'm like, oh my God, what did I sign up for? Because I got to swim 2.4 miles, right? But it was just the process, the journey of learning is what I fell in love with. Jaden, I learned a lot after my first marathon that I completed, and I learned a lot about goal setting and how you got to be cautious there, because what I did is I set out a goal to run a marathon, and I did it. And the first thing I did after completing it is I stopped running. And I'm like, okay, goals are important, but I did the thing and then I stopped.
Yeah.
And when I took on Ironman training, I learned to fall in love with the process. Like my first marathon, I didn't learn how to become a better runner. I just completed a thing, right? And now with the Ironman training, I eat better, I sleep better, I train better, and it's just improved my life overall. Like, I just completed the second one in July, and I'm probably in better shape than I was when I was 40.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle. It's not something you do. It's become a lifestyle.
Yeah, and it makes you, I'm sure, better with time management, more efficient in every area of your life.
That too. When you're I'm following a program with my coach, and talk about accountability, because the program's given to me each week, so I know what I do each day. Yeah. I wear a Garmin, so I track what I do each day.
That thing doesn't lie.
The program, Garmin is then programmed to what she sees on, it's called, I can't forget the name because I just went to another program, but she sees what this watch sees, right? Yeah. So I can't say, yeah, Sally, I did my workout today. She's like, yeah, no, you didn't. It didn't get recorded. So that accountability again is awesome. Which back to coaching, accountability factor.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you got your Place hoodie on.
I do.
So talk to me a little bit about Place and kind of, just where you see the opportunity is for your team, for your business, and kind of the advantages that come with being associated with Place.
Yeah. So, the platform, we refer to it as a platform, but, Place is, again, Dawn and I were just constantly looking for growth, and I think we felt we were beginning to plateau, and we were challenged by someone to go, are you guys where you want to be? And we're like, well, we're never where we want to be, right? But we felt like we were plateauing. And he's like, you're either going to have to continue to build it on your own, or maybe consider plugging into a platform. And, it gave us immediate leverage where we didn't have to go out and continue to hire. And the hiring process, it's lengthy, It can be quick, but usually those quick hires aren't usually the best, So we plugged into the Place platform, and it's been an incredible experience. So it just gives instant leverage to the team, and as you build a business, the leverage is key.
Yeah,
no one has ever built anything huge on their own. Yeah, you just can't.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So there's probably some agents out there that are, looking to hire their first buyer's agent or their first admin. And, I'm curious, as you've seen in your business over the years, what's kind of the strategy, or what's kind of your approach to finding talent and then keeping talent?
Yeah, so as far as finding it, you got to remove the emotion. Right? Because the easiest thing to do is hire your buddy, hire your friend to come into the office and do admin work. And, again, following the KW process, Dawn has been through that process like 16 times now, started out as Recruit Select and has evolved, but that is her expertise, is identifying talent. And it's not always skill that you look for. What we found out, it's character.
You can develop skill.
Can develop the skill.
Yeah.
And when we interview agents, if their first question is what's your splits?
Red flag.
It can be a red flag, right? Yeah. What we want to hear is what's the opportunity. And that's where we have gotten some really good people over the years, is people that come in and go like, tell me what's next. What's the opportunity versus, I heard someone tell me a year or two ago, and it's burned in my brain, if agents come to you for the split, they'll leave you for the split. If they're coming to you for your leads, they're going to leave you for the leads. When someone has something a little bit better. So, we love looking for people that are looking for opportunities.
Yeah. The reason somebody joins you is the same reason
Same reason they'll leave you. Yeah. And if they do leave you for a better opportunity, then that's on Dawn and I, to look in the mirror and go, our umbrella is not big enough to keep them.
Yeah.
And that's our goal. Is
That's the
like,
leadership
if we
lesson
can
right there.
creating an umbrella big enough that they can succeed under us, then why would they ever leave?
Right.
Right? I mean, as the business owners or operators, as police, I mean, we're taking the risk, right? We're taking the risk and the responsibility to grow people underneath us.
Yeah. Yeah. So over the years, like what's, you look at where you are today, what's the thing that you're most proud of with your business that you built?
Saying yes to the partnership, right?
Because that's got to be super
it was
intimidating, like super
scary,
right?
Yeah,
You don't know
it's
how that's
scary
going.
to get into business with someone because it's a family decision, and but that is really where, personally for me, I hope Dawn feels the same way. That's where things began to escalate. That was really the turning point in my real estate career.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Is everything began to change. I just began to think differently at that point. And that was really the turning point. And partnerships aren't for everybody, right? But again, partnerships, I look at partnerships as bringing an agent to the team as a partnership. Place has taught us, you're not joining us, you're partnering with us. And partnering with Place. And again, it's who you surround yourself with, right? If you're the biggest fish in the pond,
You're in the wrong pond.
Where are you going to go? Where are you going to grow?
Yeah.
And we were feeling some of that. And which is why, we looked at the platform.
Yeah. That's great. So, looking forward, like what's next? Like what's, we're in like goal setting season, right? So what are some aspirations, or what are some areas that, you see as opportunities for the team going forward next year?
Yeah. We're in the goal setting season, and I'm really working with our agents to know why that number is important, whether it's a GCI number, whether it's dollar amount or we say on our team, family served, not units, whether it's what number is it? And we need a number, right? I mean, our world evolves around numbers, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's, hey, I want to serve 50 families next year, or I want to make X. But then I want to know what's their relationship with that. If it's just a number, and it's so funny, as I've coached myself, it's oftentimes you'll have agents that go, well, I didn't hit my number of 24 this year, but I want to do 36 next year, right? It's like,
well, let's just double it. Yeah.
Like, have you earned the right to do that, or do you need to stay where you are? But really, it's like, what caused that to happen, whatever that outcome was. But, again, back to the Ironman training of, people are like, why would you do that? It's like, I remember telling Dawn, she's like, how do you feel when I was headed out to my first one in Arizona? And I'm like, I've never wanted anything so bad, but I had a true relationship with wanting to complete that goal.
Yeah. So, there's agents out there that they close a lot of business, but they don't treat their business like a business, right? There's agents that sell a ton of real estate. They make a lot of money, but they don't keep any of it.
Right.
So I think that's a huge area that it sounds like you've grown a lot in over the years. Kind of give some advice, free advice to those agents that are struggling with managing their finances. Like, what's the first step?
P&L.
Yeah.
If you don't have a P&L, you don't know what you're spending. And, we have talked to a lot of agents over the years, some doing a lot of business, some wanting to grow their business. And when we ask for their P&L, we often get, I don't have one, which tells me you got a JOB, right? You're self-employed. And usually when you're self-employed, you're just doing most of the work, right? If I could give any recommendation, the E-Myth Revisited is an awesome book. And it talks about how people can be really skilled at their trade, but it doesn't mean they can go off and build a business on it, right? Because it's a whole different mindset. And in our industry, we see that so often. I just interviewed a handyman service, and the guy's built a nice business. And I said, you guys you're often highly skilled, and you operate off the dashboard of your truck, and they don't show up, or they forget to show up, But, we get really good at working with the client. But, When we start looking at our P&Ls, sometimes Dawn and I's, our best months of GCI were not necessarily our most profitable.
Yeah.
Because we spent money to make the GCI, but where's the profit? And now that's a key for us.
Yeah.
What's the profit? Yeah. And GCI is a benchmark, but it's the wrong benchmark.
It's a sexy number, but it doesn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah. And unfortunately in our industry, it's all about GCI and units, but yeah, what's the profit at the end of the day? Yeah. And that's a high focus for places. What's your profitability?
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about finding what your 20% is, like what you're skilled in and what you're not, because that's something that you can leverage out, right? You can have someone else, bring you those numbers, put that report together and bring it to you.
Yeah.
And if you're not good at it, it's something that's important enough to where.
And, we had to learn that. One of our accountants, CFOs we had at one time, we'd get the report and we're like, okay, now what?
Can we explain this to you?
Yeah.
What's this number mean?
What is this telling us, right? But yeah, we spend a lot of time on.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Is there anything that I should have asked that I haven't yet?
Where's the industry headed?
Yeah, let's dive in. Yeah, where do you see the market headed in 2025? You're seasoned enough.
Thank you.
Been through a few different market shifts. Yeah. So, how have you seen the industry change over the years, and then where do you think it's headed?
I've seen a lot of market changes. Yeah, a lot of shifts. We're in one right now. This is probably number 6 or 7 for me, I would say, of major shifts. Obviously, the recession was more than a shift. I mean, and I will say I probably learned more during that 6-year period of recession than I did my previous 10 or 15.
Yeah, tell a story of what you would try to do during that period. Each Saturday you'd come in and you'd have a goal.
Yeah.
Right?
So, Dawn and I, we would have 25 listings on the board, and I would tell her, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in Saturday morning. I'm going to shoot for $100,000 in price reductions because that's all we did, right? It's like, it's so funny because when the phone would ring for another listing, we're like, oh, man, do we want to take on another one, right? Because honestly, the average days on market in the West County market where we work back in 2008, 9 was 150 average days on market. Yeah.
Yeah.
And more than one kitchen table conversation I had is, Jaden, I can't help you. Mm-hmm. We need X, Tom, to get out of our house so we can just break even and move on. And if there was no hardship there for a short sale, I never thought I would say those words, but I'd have to go, I can't help you. I can't take another listing for what you need because the buyer doesn't care what you need, right?
Yeah.
And, I learned a lot during the...
Learned a lot about difficult conversations.
Years. Absolutely.
Well, yeah.
But, as far as where the market's headed, heck, we don't know. Technology is just, it's changed the game to some degree, right? Yet, here's what I constantly talk about with our team is we're in the service industry. That'll never change. We're in the service business in the real estate industry. And I often use the analogy of restaurants. You see some restaurants that just thrive. It's the same people in there because for whatever reason, they have created an experience when you go in there. My wife, Lori, and I, we have our favorite place to go. It's our go-to place. And then, you see other restaurants in the valley that are here one day and gone the next. It's like, it's food, right? And the place we go isn't the most awesome food. It's just we know what we get when we get there. But we're there for the experience. And I think if agents would focus on building, it's all about relationships. And I always say in 31 years, I've yet to sell a house that didn't involve another person, right? Even if it was a bank, you're talking to someone now. There's no emotion in that conversation, but we have to engage with the people that are in that house before we're going to do anything with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. Yeah, I think, it's all about relationship. And I think, I've touched on this in several other episodes too, is not only relationships with people that are selling or buying that house, but also relationships with agent to agent.
Yeah.
I think that's going to bring you a lot of business. And, think about it, whenever you somebody writes an offer on your listing and it's somebody that you've worked with before that you had a great transaction with, like you're excited for that. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
It just makes everything easier, and you know that you're in it together, and you know it's a huge part of this industry is just building relationships not only with the clients but also with
and the technology has actually brought on complexity in our industry. I think 30 years ago there was none of that. I mean, we didn't have when I started we didn't have fax machines, so it was more manual labor to run around, but it was simpler back then. And one of the things I've learned in my entrepreneurial coaching is you can scale simplicity, you cannot scale complexity. If what you're doing is just complex, and for example, met with one of our agents the other day, and he's like, here's my 6 pillars of lead gen for next year. And I'm like, too many. Why 6? He's like, well, I'm going to cold call. I'm like, do you like cold calling? Can you do it? No, I hate doing that. Then why do that? Right? Mm-hmm. It's certainly for some people that works great for them. But what gives you energy and what drains you? If what you're going to do is it can be effective, but if it drains you, how long are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Right? So you got to figure out what it is that feeds you energy and just do that.
And to fall in love with that process, going back to what you said earlier, right?
Yeah. My kryptonite is my email. And I despise email. It drains me to get into the email.
Don't email it.
Well, you can now because Caroline on our team has worked with me this week, and she's got folders set up, and all I have to do is check the folders.
There you go.
She runs through everything else, but again, it's back to leverage, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I always finish up with this question. Readers are leaders. So what's the most impactful book that you've read either this year or, you can go back as far as you want, but one of the most impactful books or podcasts?
Yeah. So probably one of the more recent impactful books, impactful enough that I joined their coaching program, which is Strategic Coach. But the book 10X is easier than 2X. It's been out for a couple of years now, a year and a half or so. That changed the way I think now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And who's that written by again?
Dan Sullivan.
And
he's run Strategic Coach, which is the entrepreneurial coaching for 50 years. Cool. And he co-authors every book with Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
Okay. So big idea of that book, if I'm guessing, is to think bigger.
It's easier to think 10X than 2X.
Right.
If we go from, hey, I sold 20 units this year, I want to sell 28 next year or 30. You just do more of the same. Mm-hmm. But if you go from 20 to 200, virtually everything you're doing right now, you have to eliminate.
Yeah, you think
your funnel has to get drastically different. Yeah. And it's not about just adding zeros, but we have all had 10X moves in our life. Like me leaving engineering to get into real estate was a 10X move, right? Mm-hmm. I look at infants when they learn how to walk. When they go from crawling to walking, that's a 10X move. So, people that have been through divorces or tragic situations that totally redirected their life, 10X move. So,
what got you to where you are today won't get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And most often we just refer to our past and we don't imagine what is out there for us.
Yeah.
So,
love it.
Thinking there and then work yourself backward and do that today, what you want to be in the future versus I know what I can do and I just do more of it.
Yeah.
That's 2Xing.
I love it. Well, Tom, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. We'll see you on the next episode.